Welcome to this community call for Falco. Little reminder, Falco is a sincere project, so we follow their code of conduct. Please be kind to each other. If you don't want to be recorded, because this call is recorded, just turn off your camera. Today, the agenda is pretty little, pretty small. We only have one item from Dmitry. Dmitry, mic is yours.
Yeah, thanks. So I actually wanted to bring to your attention a topic that we have discussed a couple of weeks ago already. Now I have finally formulated a more detailed proposal about this one. I have attached a link there in the meeting notes. So what is it all about? So in case you haven't heard about this before and have missed the last meeting, the last but one. So the point is that we want to propose for the Falco security libraries to maintain and manage their Git history a little bit differently. Namely, at the moment, what happens is that all the PRs are getting merged as they are, with all the intermediate changes and so on and so forth. And the proposal is to squash or somehow otherwise make those commits a little bit more atomic. So the main advantage of this is that it will be easier to reason about the history of the project, and every single commit and every single change set is going to be more atomic in the sense that, yeah, you don't have to guess which particular part is broken. You know that all the commits in between are actually working, passing the test, and so on and so forth. Last time when we were discussing this, essentially the feedback was that the only concern that community has about this is that there is a certain amount of question about legal side of these things, about namely how sign-offs for the commits are going to work. So for that, I have spent some amount of time trying to find some colleagues who actually know better about this than I do. And well, I'm not sure what you folks think about this, but it turns out, or it seems like everybody more or less agrees or converge on that if whatever the final history is going to be merged into the main repository, or I mean into the main branch, if there would be those sign-offs, no matter in which format, it's going to be completely same from the legal perspective. Having said that, my question to you folks would be, what are your expectations from this proposal? Or how do you even want yourself to see the final commits that are landing in the main branch?
As this question is related to Falco, I think it's more questions for the core maintainers. But from my own perspective as a maintainer of other projects, it's really better for reviews to have scratched commits for sure. And when we are several to work on the same branch, technically we still can scratch the commits and sign off and co-author the commit. It's something we did several times for Falco Psychic. So I don't have any issue with this issue right now, but I'm not core maintainers of Falco or Libs. So if Jason or else,
I have nothing against this. I think this is pretty much very helpful for anyone using the code, even in a fork or in other projects as well. Also for us, I would say. I'm not totally sure what the final form could be. I'm sorry, but I didn't have time to check through your issue yet, but it seems very well written, and thanks for sharing all your research as well. So I'm gonna try to go deeper in all the resources you pointed out, and if it's just a matter of form, I think we figured it out, you know, in a trivial way. If there's nothing legal or, you know, anything technical being a blocker, I'm definitely open to it. One question that I have is, given your research, do you also have found some ways to make it automatic in a way? So for now, let's say that our automation does run on the last commit of each branch in each HPR, but I just wonder, like, could we enforce it in some way that every commit builds? That may be like maybe too much expensive, but I'm just wondering, like, what other projects do, if it's something that they just do by, you know, by hand or something.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's one of the maybe a tricky questions here. It seems like no matter which solution is going to be accepted at the end, it will require a little bit more efforts from the committers and maintainers. I haven't done completely fully rigorous research in this sense, but all the project that I was looking for, I think not a single one is actually enforcing this manually. All of them are trying to enforce it via sort of a culture and via like these readmes about how the contribution is supposed to look like. So essentially, most of them are saying, please like rebase your commits, squash your stuff, and so on and so forth. So essentially, they put in the requirements and all this maintenance burden into the commit authors, in the PR authors, letting the maintainers be essentially gatekeepers behind this. So unfortunately, that's how it happens, and I'm not aware about if there is any way to do this automatically, unfortunately.
The only weakness that I see in this approach on top of my mind is we have many portions of code that are very tied to system, programming, and the code is very, tightly coupled. And what happens is usually that we do split the efforts in many commits just to make, single commits not too big in lines of code difference. But that comes at the cost that the commit doesn't build anymore, right? Because sometimes if you want to make like really atomic commits, it may happen that it goes 500 lines of code and more of difference, which is weird, right? But given when the code is all tangled together, it can happen. And up until we finish this renovation efforts that, we are doing great, I think. It has been better since 2 years ago when I joined, trust me, but we are far from being perfect in that perspective. So the downside that I see is that we may have much bigger commits, and to the point that maybe, they're less readable than before, and maybe the cost, but I do see the point. So again, I'm still positive, even though this point is, I think it's real.
Yeah, I completely agree with your point as well. And in fact, even this situation is still better than how it's been right now, because even if those intermediate commits are not going to be building or like passing tests or whatever, they're still like they're logically bound to whatever they're going to implement. And then at the very least, it's going to be easier to like read this history.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty much it from my side. I just want to bring this some attention to this again. So yeah, nothing else from my side.
I have an additional question on this subject. I started to think about how to improve this, so right now, are you having issues because you are trying to pretty much maybe bisect or do something like that, or maybe revert patches to see where a potential issue was introduced? In the meantime, I had this problem as well, and but I worked around it. So I understand that this is a point for improvement of the project, and I do agree with Jason. But have you tried using GitHub's APIs to look at the PR number to identify all these blocks of commits? Because GitHub is able to, I can send you like 3 lines of code that do this, but it's very easy because GitHub is able to map every commit to the PR that originated it. And our process does enforce the fact that every commit has a PR. So at least I know that you are thinking about having an even better process that accounts for atomic changes, but our process does enforce PRs. And the PR is the atomic part of the change. So even if it's not squashed, you can get this list even today.
Yeah. I think it was even brought up last time we were discussing about this. Yeah, so it's a valid point in this regard, but it does not solve, unfortunately, everything. And it could be considered as like an intermediate tool to ease your life a little bit, but like, yeah, I think everybody agrees that it's not a perfect situation in this regard, even though you can reference your changes to the PRs. It's still an intermediate step you have to perform. It's still a little bit harder to do bisecting and everything because now you have this intermediate step and it's just not nice.
Fair point. And just the last question, what is your main use for your main reason to do this? Is it for bisect? Is it for reverting? What's the main thing that you're looking at?
Well, yeah. So I'm coming from the very same team you maybe know about, Mauro, one of the maintainers was also coming from. So here's the project, Red Hat ACS. And yeah, we do bisecting, and fortunately rarely with the reverts. And probably the main problem that we have right now is that we have to carry up with the baggage of some custom changes on top of Falco. And rebasing those changes, this is a main problem essentially.
Yeah, so for rebasing those changes, this would help. I know, believe me, I do have experience in working a little bit with the forks, including that code fork. So yeah, I can totally see your pain. Although keeping those changes on top is this would ease the pain a little bit, and it's something that we have to think about. Although it will never eliminate the problem, you will still have a lot of pain, especially depending on how deep you are going with your modifications. This will something like that maybe can ease the pain by, I guess, 20% pain, which is something, but just thinking about it. But I see the point. Yeah. I don't have further questions on the topic. Thanks.
Just to mention, we actually, yeah, indeed, we also were thinking in the very same direction, and we have actually tried to achieve this. And what happened right now is that we have actually rearranged fork, reshuffled commit, tried to do this a little bit more straightforward for us. And then we have faced another problem, that this whole situation have put us into the situation where there is some subtle bug. Nobody knows where it's coming from. And it could be that it's actually somehow hidden in the Falco itself that nobody's aware about yet. Maybe there are some issues. We're going to report about this, obviously, when we'll pinpoint the situation. But in the meantime, this whole furrow of commits, unfortunately, makes even these efforts much harder. So it's like, chicken and egg problem somehow at the end.
Thanks a lot for the context.
Thanks. Thank you all. I just added a little new item for today. Basically, I told you months ago, Amazon AWS released a service called Amazon Security Lake. Basically, the security lake is a data lake only for security events from Amazon's services, but from anything. And they asked us to integrate Falco as the first open source to be in a custom source for Security Lake. So we did it, and Security Lake is generally available today, and Falco and through Falco Sidekick are available. Just a little issue in the documentations. They are referring Falco Sidekick and Falco as SysDict projects. So I asked them to change that again. So if you want to try, you can go try them. Any new member, any extra topic for today? Okay, I think we are good. So thank you, everybody. See you next week before summer vacations. Have a good and great week. See you.